All right, today we're going to jump into a really interesting piece that uses a simple kid's story to tackle some huge ideas. It's all about fairness and effort, and how, according to this source, they clash within the concept of socialism. Let's see how they build this argument.
Okay, so the piece kicks off with this quote from its narrator. "When I first dreamed of fairness, I imagined a world where no child went without." I mean, that's a sentiment almost anyone can get behind, right? A dream of equality. And starting here is really important because it sets up this ideal that the rest of the story is, well, it's going to pick apart.
And boom, right away, the source hits us with the core question it wants to explore. It's not just about what's fair in some abstract sense. It's about what happens to the whole idea of fairness when you take human effort out of the equation. That's the conflict they're setting up. So, to dig into this question, the article tells a story. It's set in this fictional place called Sunnyvale Street. You can think of it as a little laboratory, you know? A perfect, sunny place where the specific idea of fairness is about to be put to the ultimate test. And the story itself, which is called The Lemon Stand Lesson, it starts from a place of really pure good intentions. The kids in the story, they all believe that everyone deserves the same smile. It's this simple, beautiful idea that happiness should be shared by everyone, equally. So how exactly does this source build its case from there? Well, it introduces us to a few key characters in this lemon stand lesson. And each one is meant to represent a different part of the argument.
All right, so we meet 4 kids here, and each one plays a pretty specific role in this little social experiment. You've got Milo, who they call the creator. He's the one doing the work. Then there's Theo, the instigator, who kind of stirs the pot with a new idea of fairness. Luna is the group's conscience, and Asha is the observer, just watching it all unfold.
The story really zooms in on Milo first. And this is to make a point about where value comes from. It's laid out in these 4 clear steps. He has a dream, new toys. He builds something, a lemonade stand. He works hard, sweat and sun. And then he earns. The article is basically saying, see, this is the proper way to create something worthwhile.
And this part here is just a perfect illustration of the direct link the source is trying to make. Milo's hard work isn't just work. It literally turns into his reward, those new toys. The argument is super simple. Effort leads directly to reward.
Okay, so now we get to the turning point of the whole story. This is where that simple idea of you work, you earn gets challenged by a very different idea of what's fair.
And this is the exact moment the conflict sparks. Someone asks, why should one boy have joy alone? Aren't we all equal? Now, the source is really specific here. It describes this question not as some noble call for justice, but as a whisper of envy that's just dressed up to look like a plea for fairness. This is the big ideological shift in the story. And here the narrator just lays it all out on the table for us. We see these 2 clashing ideas of fairness. On one side, you have fairness born from contribution, from what you actually give and create. And on the other side, well, the source calls it fairness achieved through confiscation, by taking and redistributing what somebody else created. So fueled by this new idea of what's fair, the other kids decide they need to do something. They get together and make a plan to take Milo's toys, the ones he earned, remember, and hand them out to the whole group. All right, so the decision's been made, the toys have been taken and shared. What happens now? Well, this next part of the story is all about the consequences. It details what the source calls the price of this new kind of equal. And what follows is a really fast downward spiral. On day 1, sure, there's laughter, everyone has a toy, but then pretty soon after, things start to go wrong. The toys break, and since no one feels like they really own them, nobody fixes them. Before long, the street is quiet. The lemonade stand that started it all, it's empty. The source is arguing that once you remove the incentive to create and to care, the whole system just collapses. Then the source boils its entire argument down into this one little rhyme. For when all gain without the strain, the will to work begins to wane. And that's really the core thesis of the story, right there. The moment you break that link between effort and reward, the motivation to even try just vanishes.
Okay, so at this point the story itself kind of hits pause. The narrator, Zoran Mamdani, the guy we heard from at the very beginning, he comes back in to spell out the moral of the story and reflect on how his own ideas have changed.
And the narrator walks us through what he sees as these painful realizations. He talks about being wrong, thinking you could just decree fairness into existence. He was wrong that envy would disappear with equality, or that you could multiply joy by dividing it up. The big takeaway for him? Good intentions are not enough. Without personal responsibility, a community just can't hold itself together.
So if just wishing for fairness isn't enough, what does work? What actually builds something lasting? According to the source, it's something a lot harder. It's individual effort, a real sense of personal ownership, and the pride that you get from making something yourself.
And then the whole story gets boiled down to this one single lesson from Sunnyvale Street. When everything belongs to everyone, nothing truly belongs to anyone. That's the core argument against collective ownership right there, that it just dilutes responsibility until it basically disappears.
And this is the final, pretty stark conclusion the article presents. It's not just about economics or who owns what. The source argues it's about something deep in human nature. If you don't have that sense of ownership, that instinct to care for something, to maintain it, it just vanishes.
And so, the source leaves us with this final big question to think about. By using this really simple story, it tries to reframe the whole debate. It suggests this isn't just about politics or economics, it's about something much more fundamental. What is the true foundation of a community? How do we actually build a society that works?